Welcome to the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast, where we remember a time when stacks of cards were held together with rubber bands and Mickey mantles were put in bike spokes. We hope you will enjoy and reminisce as you come along with us as we tell stories about the baseball cards from the Golden Age of Baseball. We will examine the state of the vintage baseball card market and talk to some of the greatest collectors in the hobby. You won't be hearing us talk about any chrome or shiny cards here. Now, to take you on this retrospective journey, here's your host, direct from the shallow end of the gene pool, my son, Mike Moynihan.
Yo, and hello, everybody. Mike here. That was really loud, wasn't it?
That was a little bit loud.
Sounded a little.
I'm sorry, technical difficulties.
Sounded a little loud. Mike Moynihan here, my co-host for this episode, pretty much every episode, Andy Davis. Welcome to the fourth episode of our podcast. What do you think, man, so far?
We are knocking them out, man. It's been fun. And,
yeah.
I think I know I can speak for myself that it's been fun talking about this stuff, and I've obviously learned a lot too. Like, you know, through yourself and then a couple of the guests that we've had on. It's been a lot of fun because I'm really interested in this stuff, and you know, I'm by no means an expert, but I know a little bit. I know enough to kind of, you know, carry on a conversation. So it's fun to learn more about it.
Me too. And I've learned a lot too. And I think today we're both going to hopefully educate so many people out there, because we're doing our first really deep dive into a year of cardboard during the golden age of cardboard, which I kind of consider, you know, 48, like we said from the very beginning, to, you know, right after the war to 1980. It's kind of the era. And we're going to just start off with a bang. And episode 4 is going to be on 1953. And so we'll get into that in a minute. But I wanted to ask you real quick. First of all, we had second week of NFL,
Yes.
right? So we're shooting this on Monday, just so everybody knows. And it'll probably be released on Wednesday. But, you know, yesterday the Cowboys pulled out. Literally a miracle. I mean, literally a miracle. And so that was interesting. And the Chiefs won in overtime. And it was an interesting week of football. Lots of injuries. But what I really am shocked about is I looked up and I looked at the standings. I'm like, there's only a week left of baseball. Like, it feels like we just started, right? I mean, the 2020 season literally just started. And the answer is it did just start.
Right. You're correct in both of those statements. It has flown by because, yeah, it was really short.
Yeah, I mean, to think that 60 games, it just gone. When you're playing every day, I mean, it's 2 months. And the normal baseball season is 3 times that long, right? So the playoffs are going to be interesting. We got a last week, you know, craziness and all the stuff that's going to be going on with that. So that should be a lot of fun. Even though this is a vintage vintage baseball card podcast, we follow the game, right?
Of course. I mean, if you love baseball, then yeah, you follow baseball every year.
You know, I think that's a key, by the way. You just made a great point. I think to love baseball cards, you got to love baseball. Like, right? Or
that's how it works for me. Like, I can't remember where I've heard. There's somebody out there. I think it's maybe it's the House of Jordan's podcast, where they ask a question at the end. You know, if you had to give up one or the other, the sport, watching the sport, or collecting the cards, which would it be? And as for me, like, I mean, I love both of them so much, but I just don't think I could ever give up watching sports. I can't see a scenario where I would give up watching sports. So that's, to me, the reason I love the cards is because of the sports, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that would be an easy choice for me to give up the cards, to not give up the sport and the hit. No thank. I mean, every day in the week, right? Every day of the week. So, but man, we have got a battle royale on tap today. we are going to talk about a year of sports cards that might be the best ever. You could make an argument in terms of pure beauty of cards, right?
You could make a strong case. I mean, these are a couple of heavy hitter sets. I know a lot of people in our YouTube community really love these sets. So I think this one will probably resonate with people for sure.
Well, let me set the stage a little bit of what's going on in 1953, because to understand the importance of these two sets, you have to know the context of what was going on, both in sports card history and in baseball itself. I mean, if you think 1953, Eisenhower just became president in 53. Korean War was coming to an end. Khrushchev took over in Russia. So there was a lot of geopolitical events going on. And here stateside in sports, baseball is king. I mean, it is, and it's not only king, it's really king in one place, New York City. You've got three really good teams, the Giants, the Yankees, and the Dodgers. I mean, you've got amazing superstars that are already, Mays and Mantle are playing. Aaron's the next year, but you got Eddie Matthews, you've got Stan Musial, Ted Williams. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Whitey Ford and Yogi Berra, and just so many players. Roy Campanella. I could go on and on.
And let me stop you there. You said something that I think is important, especially for a lot of younger people. And when you said that baseball was king, I mean, like, there's so many debates that go on nowadays, like which sport is more popular: basketball, football, baseball, soccer, whatever your sport may be. But back then, you were absolutely right. There was just no debate. It was baseball, right?
Yeah, it was the national pastime in every sense of the word. It wasn't just something you said because people say it. It really was that. And the cards brought that to life for people all across the country that didn't live in these cities. And it's not like it is today where everything was broadcast all over the country. You could watch any game you want on MLB, subscription, and you could watch didn't work that way. You got your regional team, and the farthest west team in 1953 was the St. Louis Cardinals and the St. Louis Browns, right? Which, by the way, later that year, the Browns became the Orioles, and the Boston Braves moved to Milwaukee and became the Braves in the 53 season. So you've got expansion starting and things are moving more west, but still it's a very regional sport, right? Everything's pretty much Mississippi and east of that. So, and certainly very centered in the Northeast. You had so many teams up in Boston and Philly, and because you had the Philly had two teams, Boston had two teams, New York had three teams, right? I mean,
the travel was a lot different back then. You didn't have to go as far.
Yeah, much fewer teams too. So the baseball world was certainly different. Now in the card world, this is where it gets really interesting. And before we talk about that, I want you guys to understand that Andy and I have learned a lot of this stuff, either A, researching for this podcast, B, refreshing ourselves from information we've known in the past and just kind of revisiting it. But the reality of it is there are so many resources out there. If you want to learn about these vintage sets, don't be afraid to go find it. I'll talk about a few, but Andy, what's one resource you use to learn, to kind of bone up on this stuff?
So on the PSA website, you can click on the tab for the PSA set registry, and then in the top right they have this tab that's Explore Sets. So you can click on baseball, go down to the 53 tops or whichever set, but obviously we're talking about 53 tops in Bowman. So I went to that set, and there's a little link there you can click where it gives like an in-depth article on the 53 top set. Has just a wealth of information. And I think this article was written back in 2007, but I mean, it's still pretty relevant today. The only thing that I saw that was probably different was they quoted a lot of, pop reports on some of the cards, which would have been from back then. So those have, obviously changed over the years, but everything else it's history, right? So it doesn't change really.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the great resources that I use, and there's tons of others out there. And I think you were looking at some different stuff, right?
Yeah. So another great place to look besides PSA is the Cardboard Connection, which is literally cardboardconnection.com. On that, you can look up different baseball sets, and in that, it'll give you a great write-up on the set and what was unique about it and how many cards there were and, big rookies and everything you'd want to know. It has key cards. It has set checklist. So any set you want, if you go to cardboardconnection.com, you can find out information about it, especially it's cool to read about the kind of mainstream sets, but it has everything, so if there were weird regional food issues or something, you can go learn about it. And it's another great resource. And then one of the biggest resources I used, and I'm going to love talking about all this because that's what I'm going to talk about next, is this book right here. And it's for those of you that are listening on a podcast, it's called The Bubblegum Card War. And it is by Dean Hanley. The Great Bowman and Top Sets from 1948 to 1955. It was a all-out war. This isn't a joke, not like shooting guns and stuff war, but a war for supremacy of the nickels and pennies of kids around the country. And it was between Bowman and Tops. So let me set the stage for you, because Andy, you know a lot of this history probably, but not everybody out there might know it. And it's cool to learn and think about. So Bowman, 1948, they're releasing sets. Leaf was around, but Bowman was the king of the baseball card world. And they dominated. 48, 49, 50, 51 comes around. Bowman has their classic 51 Bowman set, the smaller cards, almost like cigarette cards. They're slightly bigger than the old cigarette cards, but not much bigger. And they had an exclusive, domination of the baseball card market. Well, then comes this company called Topps, this guy named Cy Berger, who at the time is running Topps. They're a candy company, and they want to get into the sports card realm to sell more bubble gum. They were trying to sell bubble gum. At the end of the day, the baseball cards were an ancillary part to bubble gum sales for both companies, by the way, Bowman and Topps. So Topps puts out this 51 Topps set, which is a game type set, which is incredibly unsuccessful. And that was actually Cy Berger was with the company, but after that debacle of a set, they gave the reins over. They told Cy Berger, you go make the set you want to make, more or less. And all of this is documented in this book, by the way. So if you want to go to Amazon and get it, it is a great read. Very fascinating stuff. So Cy Berger creates the classic, beautiful 1952 Topps set, which bursts onto the scene and blows Bowman out of the water and really puts them back on their heels. And they're like, oh my goodness. I mean, the 52 Bowman set was nice. I wouldn't call it like groundbreaking or anything, but 52 Topps certainly was. Bigger cards, right? Cheaper cards, cheaper packs. They went after Bowman every way possible. They stole away players. Cy Berger literally went to clubhouses and would, pal around with the guys and take them out and try to sign them to a deal with Topps. And so after 52, Bowman's like they're reeling. They're like, what do we do? Well, what's their response to the 52 Topps set? They come out with arguably the most beautiful photography set ever created. And it's the 1953 Bowman Color Set. So the 53, I'll talk about that first, Andy, a little bit. You can throw in anything you want, and then I'll let you handle the top side of it on just kind of the set. But the Bowman cards, they went big. They went very similar to, the 52 Topps set. So they went bigger in terms of the size, but it's just 160 cards on the Bowman Color side. And it's one of the smallest sets really they ever created. They did it in 2 series. They have cards number 1 through 112 is the first series called the low numbers. And then you have 113 through 160 are the high numbers. And they say the high numbers are more difficult to find. That can be debated. But Bowman has these just, beautiful color images that they use. There's no writing on the front at all of the cards. It's just the player. And ironically, all of these pictures were shot either at Yankee Stadium or the Polo Grounds, and they were all done before the 52 season was over. So these are essentially dated pictures, but that's how it is for a lot of the, they have to produce the cards, right? So they have to get pictures that aren't in the actual year that the card is released. And so like all the Braves guys have Boston Braves hats on, even though they had moved to Milwaukee for the 53 season, as an example. They had to hire a photographer, a New York-based photographer, to take all the pictures so they could get them all done. So all the American League guys are shot at Yankee Stadium. I shouldn't say all, most. And then the National League guys are shot at the Polo Grounds. So you have this beautiful set, and it was the first Bowman set, ironically, first ever Bowman set that had stats on the back of the card, player stats. They had write-ups on the players and stuff like that. This is the beautiful, I'm showing right now, the Stan Musial card. He's in the dugout. You got this army green dugout color that I guess they just had a surplus of army green paint after the war, because everything was painted army green all around sports. You have so many classic images on the 53 Bowman Color. And then they did this, thing for the third series that they were going to come out with. Basically, Bowman blew its wad. I mean, they spent so much money to produce these beautiful full color. It was the first time, by the way, full color photographs had been used on cards, and they were out of money. They were like, oh crap. And we have more cards to make. And so then they produced a 64 card black and white set that same year. And they actually started the numbering over. It wasn't even like a continuation. It was cards number 1 through 64. And then that black and white set is still gorgeous. The backs look the same and everything. It just doesn't have the same beauty as the color set for obvious reasons. And there's not very many big players in the black and white set. In fact, the really only 2 key Hall of Famers are Bob Lemon and Casey Stengel. So it's, a bunch of scrub kind of guys. By the way, speaking of the black and white set, before I get too far into this, if you stay to the end, you're going to have a chance to win a 1953 Bowman Extension Set. And if you want to know what that is, keep listening and I will tell you all about it. But finishing up with Bowman, I mean, it is incredibly hard to argue that it's not one of the prettiest ever. In fact, my favorite baseball card of all time is in the 53 Bowman Color Set. And it's the Pee Wee Reese card. And this card is absolutely stunning. It is a full color, they're all full color, but a shot of Pee Wee Reese leaping as a runner is sliding into second base and him making a double play throw. Now, this is actually a black and white photo that they painted over, believe it or not, on the Reese card. And a lot of people don't know that, but 53 Bowman also is the first post-war set that had multiple player cards on it, combo cards, as we call them. And one of the beautiful ones is you've got there are only 2 of them. They both feature Yankees, and you've got the Berra Bauer Mantle, where Mantle's literally just a sliver on the card. He barely is on there.
Yeah, if they had that one to do over again, maybe you have Mantle in the middle.
Right. Hank Bauer in the middle. That seems a little odd. And then you have there's a second one, and I'm looking for it real quick so I can show it to you.
Yeah, you're breaking out the heavy hitters here. I know that Pee Wee Reese, that is a favorite of a lot of people.
Yeah. The second combo card is Phil Rizzuto and Billy Martin. So what's great about it, if you really analyze the pictures and look at the pictures on the 53 Bowman Color Set, like you see, oh, let me find it. Maybe I already showed it. You see the uniforms in amazing detail. Like I'm showing the Eddie Matthews right now, and the Braves, and they're wearing these woolen uniforms, and you got to know that they are hot. There's the Warren Spawn. I mean, the beautiful color there, the sleeve emblem of the Brave. I mean, just gorgeous. But you get to see the gloves, you get to see the back, all the stuff in incredible detail that really wasn't represented before on baseball cards. And the detail and the beauty of it is, it's indescribable to me how gorgeous that set is. So
when you have
all right, man,
when you show like a nice clean example of a 53 Bowman, the colors just pop like really no other set that I can think of. Just kind of like what you said, like the uniforms, the background of the stand musial, the dugout, like the colors are just so vibrant and amazing. So I definitely understand why that is a lot of people's favorite for sure.
Yeah, but Topps wasn't to be outdone. They had just come out with 52 Topps the year before, and they wanted to follow up big time. So what did they do, Andy?
So Topps, like you said, in 52, they came out with the classic 52 set that was, I believe it was like 407 cards.
That's right.
So and I don't know, you didn't really get into the lawsuit part. So, but there was a big legal battle going on between Topps and Bowman at this time. Like, Bowman they were pretty upset that Topps was, taking a big piece of the pie. So, they were filing all these, contract violations against Topps. And so what Topps did in 53 is, instead of the color photos like the 53 Bowman has, they had oil paintings that were commissioned by an artist in New Jersey. And they went ahead and they kind of decided to go ahead and scale back the number of cards from 407 to, I think it was 280, but I think we kind of talked about this the other day. Is it maybe like actually 274?
Yeah, there were 6 cards in the 53 Topps set that were just never printed due to the contract disputes that you're talking about between Topps and Bowman.
Right. So Topps, they came out with this basically 274 card set, and they had 4 series, and they went ahead, they pulled one of the old tricks from the past. Like a lot of pre-war collectors probably, they know about the 33 Gowdy Lajoie. There's the 32 U.S. Caramel Freddie Lindstrom. There's the 33 George C. Miller Ivy Andrews. And what a lot of these companies did is they would, if you completed the set, and these were relatively small sets. The Gowdy was a big set, but these other sets were relatively small sets. If you completed the set, you could send in the set, and they would send you like a baseball mitt or a baseball, something like that. Tickets to a game, I think, in some cases. So they would always make one card in the set, either like super, super short printed, or in some cases they didn't even really make it at all, because I guess they were so cheap they didn't want to give away like baseball gloves or whatever. So Topps, what they decided to do in 53 is, I think it was like maybe like 6 cards that they just left out of Series 1. And so they never issued cards like, I think it was 253, 261, 276, 268, 271, and 275. So, and then the first series, the ones that they had skipped, I think it was like I think there's like 5 or 6 different guys, right? 5 or 6 in the first and 5 or 6 in the second series. I won't go down the list. I mean, if anybody wants to know the list of players, you can go ahead and look those up. But they did like single prints of, guys like Pee Wee Reese, Mickey Mantle, Warren Spahn. So cards like that will definitely command a big premium. They had, and this is something that we can kind of talk about a little bit too, is, some of these contract battles that led to, one set or the other having or not having certain guys, right? So with 53 Tops, a couple of the guys that they ended up having that Bowman did not have would be Willie Mays, Jackie Robinson, Satchel Paige was another one. Who's the other? There was one other big one, right?
Bear was in both.
I'm trying to think of who the other one was.
Ella was in both. Eddie Matthews was in both. Well, you got to remember just to throw this out there, the Stan Musial, first of all, no Ted Williams at all. Right. But you had Stan Musial in the 53 Bowman Color. He wouldn't appear again on a baseball card until 1958. And it was mainly because he didn't want to be in the middle of anything. Like, he's like, forget it. I just won't sign a contract with either company during that time. I'm trying to think of who were the other big guys that might be in the top set that aren't in the.
Well, and another interesting thing that I discovered through this, and maybe you know why on this, because I really didn't see any reason why, is 53 Tops had Mays, 53 Bowman didn't. But Willie Mays was actually in the Army in 1953, right?
Yeah. What's funny is they did that a lot with players. They had players that were serving in the Korean War that were still included in sets because they were under contract. And like this card, and I know we're talking about Tops, but on the Bowman card, on the back of the Whitey Ford card, I read this earlier, which is great. Go read the backs of cards. I tell you, if you do that, you're going to learn so much little anecdotes that you probably never knew before. But it says the return of Whitey from Uncle Sam's service to the Yankee mound staff is looked upon by delight from everybody, from the president down to the bat boy. Like, who wrote? Like, I think Cy Berger wrote a lot of these backs of the cards. He's a great young pitcher, and if he can pitch as well as he did before he left for his service, he'll be a tremendous help to the Yanks in their quest for their 5th straight pennant, which, by the way, they did win their 5th straight pennant in 1953 and the World Series. And it says 1950 was the last year for Whitey. So at this point, he had a 51 Bowman card as his rookie card, then he wasn't even playing. He had played in 50 and didn't play again until 1953.
Yeah.
So he missed the 51 and 52 seasons, which I think is ironic. And of course, Whitey Ford went on to have an amazing career, but he was 9-1 in 1950 and then had to go to fight. It's so back to Mays, right? These guys are under contract. They're big names or big, superstars. They're going to make cards of them, right? They're not going to care if the player's actually playing or not. That's kind of a moot point. I wish I had the Mays card to show you, but it's in the high series. And so it's not a very cheap card.
That's definitely one that I would like to pick up. That's an incredible looking card. It's probably, I think it's my favorite looking card in that set. And, I think a lot of people would probably say like the Mantle or the Jackie or the Satchel, but I think I like the Willie Mays the best in that set.
I don't disagree. And remember, card number 1, right? We talked about this a little bit last week or in previous episodes, I guess. Card number 1 and whatever the last card in the set is always very subject to damage because kids would throw them in shoebox. They put them in order and throw them in shoeboxes or rubber band them together. And so card number 1 in the 53 top set, do you know who it was, Andy?
Card number 1
yeah.
in 53 tops. I can't think of it off the top of my head. It wasn't Jackie, was it?
It was Jackie Robinson.
Okay.
So
I knew he was one of the
finding,
others.
yeah, and it was single printed card.
Okay.
But Jackie being number one, and at the time, Jackie was an American hero. Like literally, he was. Everything had kind of moved on. Segregation of baseball was happening, or not segregation. Integration of baseball was happening, and so Jackie was a big deal, and Topps such a big deal that in their second real set, they made Jackie Robinson the number one card, which is usually a spot held. It's a prestigious spot to hold, right? So that was a big deal.
And another thing about the 53 Topps is, they have the black or the red at the bottom, and that chips up very easily. So if you can, if you find nice examples that don't have a lot of that chipping, they tend to, obviously present a lot better, and they are more desired by collectors, I believe.
Do you know what caused, whether it was black or red? Do you know the distinction?
Was it American League, National League?
Yep. Red was American League. Black was National League.
Yeah.
Which just adds a really cool, when you put the cards together and kind of lay them out. It really looks very pretty. I don't know how else to say it. But there's what's funny about 53, and this is on both sides, there's no really big rookie cards at all in either 53 set.
Right.
Now that doesn't mean there aren't big cards, but and one of probably the most important cards in either set is card number 220 in the 53 Topps set.
Yeah, Mr. Satchel Paige.
Yeah. So this is Satchel's first and only Topps card. He was 47 years old when he pitched for the St. Louis Browns in 1953. And I think that the artist who did this captured him perfectly. I mean, he looks like a weathered, been through a lot in his life. I don't know what's the words I want to use to say that, but he looks like he's been through it, and let's call it a wise veteran. And it's an absolutely gorgeous card, but it's his only Topps card he ever had. So
can you just imagine what he might have done had he been able to come into Major League Baseball, like when he was younger and in his prime?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's fun to think about. Sadly, I watch, like the baseball series by Ken Burns and stuff, and I see what was happening. Obviously not to the level you see what he wants to show you, but there's a lot of emphasis on the segregation of baseball, and what an absolute just silliness. I mean, we can't even imagine it now, right, in today's world, but our world today is still divided, and we've still got issues. But back then it was, what do you mean black people can't play in Major League Baseball? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige and Buck Leonard, and just good grief, it would have been a very different league, right?
It would have changed things for sure. But I just think about Satchel Paige, and I'm like, how many pitchers during any generation could still pitch in the major leagues at the age of like 47?
Not very many. Nolan Ryan.
And there's really not many.
Jamie Moyer. How old was Jamie Moyer when he retired?
Well, I don't think
he wasn't the same level. Yeah.
No, he never really he played probably, 20 something years, and he never really dominated at any point. He was crafty, but that would have been really neat to see guys like that, or not see, obviously, for me, but to have seen what they could have done during that time period.
For sure. We were robbed of that history.
So who are some of the guys that were in the 53 Bowman set that were not in Topps that year? Like, who were some of the guys they had the exclusives with?
The biggest one was Musial. Reese is in both sets. me kind of, Rizzuto was in both sets. Richie Ashburn was only in the Bowman set. Mantle, of course, was in both. Campanella was in both. So there really weren't, at that point, it started to get more divisive, 54, 55. But at that time, there weren't a ton of guys. The 53 Bowman, showed managers, and the top set did not show managers. So you had Leo DeRocher, Casey Stengel, like I mentioned earlier, are in the Bowman set they aren't in the top set. So not a ton of names really that are like Musial, obviously the biggest one.
Yeah, like when I was looking at it, I was trying to comparing these two sets. Like, I guess some of the a couple of the advantages that I would give to 53 Bowman would be obviously the photography. They had the actual color photos as opposed to the oil paintings, which the oil paintings are great, but the actual photography, that was kind of cutting edge at the time. And then if you're a set collector, I think the Bowman is a much smaller set, right? What is it, around 180, something like that to complete?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
160 actually, but yeah, so 160 on the color and then 64 more on the black and white.
It leaves you a lot. Like if you're a set collector, sometimes it's kind of like the cards we were talking about on last week's episodes, the cards that you don't really want to buy, but you have to. It leaves you a lot less of those type of cards, the common type guys. So that was kind of some of the advantages I thought of. And then with tops, I think the player selection, I would kind of give them a little bit of an advantage because, they have Jackie, they have Satchel, they have Mays. That kind of, I think, gives them a little bit of an advantage there. But it was, they're both such great sets. It's hard. You really just, you can't go wrong either way, right?
Right. What were some of the big ones exclusive to tops? Jackie, probably the biggest, right? Satchel.
Well, Jackie, Satchel, and Willie.
Right. Willie Mays. That's right.
Yeah.
So there are 22 Hall of Famers pictured on cards in 53 tops, just so you know, and 26 in Bowman Color. So you can see it was a pretty and two of those are combo cards. So you could really kind of take those out, meaning 24 versus 22. It was evenly distributed, I guess I should say. There's a couple of key guys in tops only. There's a couple of key guys in Bowman only, but pretty even distribution. So
was 53 Bowman, was that the first set that would basically like multiplayer cards?
No, just the two.
But was it the first set to have those?
Yes, the first post-war set to have those, yes.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll tell you some things I like about, I've already told you how much I love the Bowman set, but what I like about the top set is it is a nice, simple design, not as simple as literally just a picture like on the Bowman, but
right,
still relatively simplistic. I do like the logo. Having a logo on the card is cool in names and positions and teams, but it's not overdone on the top set in 53. A lion's share of what you see on the card is the player's face, and a lot of great close-ups of players with, like this Campy card. I love the Roy Campanella. If you've never seen it, is just him, a portrait of him just with this gigantic grin on his face. And it's just such a beautiful card. The colors are gorgeous. And simple, effective. You really get a lot of expression in the faces of the players. And
something I'd like to toss out there for maybe if there's some listeners out there that are mostly, younger modern collectors, because like we've talked about this before, like the big rage this year has been the Project 2020 cards. So if you are a young collector collecting modern and you're a fan of that set, go back and take a look at some of these sets, like, the 53 tops. These are the type of cards that those are based on. These were like the originals, right?
Yeah, the OG, right?
Yeah, go back and take a look at how beautiful these were. people, I mean, you can like the 2020 Project 2020 or not, but I mean, these were art as well back then.
No doubt. Absolutely. And it all started with that, right? Everything else that's come since owes its credit to these two sets. You think of modern day Stadium Club, 53 Bowman Color set the standard, right? I mean,
yes, exactly. And like that's why they make like, all of these archives and throwbacks and all that stuff. They're basing those off of all of these beautiful sets from this time period.
So as we finish our last few minutes here, Andy, if you had, I mean, we're talking about choosing from two of the greatest sets ever, like literally two of the best sets ever done. Which is your favorite and why?
I have to go with the 53 Tops, and it really has more to do with the player selection for me, because out of the two sets, the two cards that I would personally want the most would be the Willie Mays #1 and the Jackie Robinson #2. So if 53 Bowman would have had those guys in it, I would probably go with 53 Bowman. So for me, I love both of the sets. Like, I would actually probably lean more towards the Bowman just for the sheer looks of it. But for me, I've got to have like the Mays and the Jackie in there.
Boy, that you make a very strong argument. And it's funny, like you can pick either set and you're not wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like you can go, I like this one better or that one better. I'm going to go Bowman, which is why we split this way, by the way, guys. It's not a question. I know you feel the same way. You just said it about the Bowman set. It's not that we don't love the other set. It's like, but if you have to choose, I'm going to choose the Bowman just because I thought it was a great response for Bowman. Just thinking about what was going on in the card market, a great response for them coming off of 1952. I think it's hilarious that they ran out of money and had to print a black and white set to finish it out, which kind of, they just left it all on the table. They left it all on the field, so to speak. And I think that's a great story that goes with the Bowman set and the photography and everything that we all love about it.
You have to appreciate the effort that Bowman put, because, Tops, when Tops came out in 52, they, from what it sounded like to me anyways, they kind of had Bowman on the ropes a little bit, and Bowman had to respond, and they did with, arguably one of the most iconic sets that we know today. I mean, the Pee Wee Reese, that card has just like taken on a life of its own over the years. Like, I know so many people that, like when they're talking about just like what is their, like, throw the players, the values, all that aside, just what they think is one of the best looking baseball cards ever produced, a lot of people would say that 53 Bowman Pee Wee Reese.
If it's not in every person's top 5, I don't know what they're looking at. I mean, it may not be your favorite, but it should be up there, in your top 5, top 10 cards of all, best looking cards of all time. Because think about it, how not only how cool of a shot it is, but it was groundbreaking. There weren't action shots like that. I mean, every other card is essentially posed, or a guy, swinging at on the side of the field or whatever. But that was so different and unique.
It really stands out too in that set, because how many other horizontal cards are there in that set?
There are none others.
Yeah, that's the only one. So I mean, it stands out in several different ways, and I don't know why they decided to do that card that way, just to have it stand out alone like that. But whoever did, great idea. I mean, that was truly iconic, I think.
And the last part about this, before we talk about do our giveaway, what happened? Think about what happened after this too, right? Bowman is essentially broke because they spent so much money on developing the 53 Bowman Color Set. They go into 54, and 54 Bowman relative to 53 is very lackluster, right? They went back to the paintings because full color photography was too expensive. What did Topps do? They went, oh yeah, we're going full color Topps photography. Not just one picture in 54 Topps, but two. One of them will be a black and white. Remember, you know how it's a smaller black and white, and then a full color picture of the player. They went all out, and Topps knew they were going in for and they were, again, backdoor deals, Cyberger making deals with players and all sorts of stuff. They were wheeling and dealing. They would add Ted Williams to their 54 Topps set, meaning you could see that basically when they stopped 53 Bowman Color, started the black and white, that was the crossing point of Topps becoming king of baseball cards, ultimately buying Bowman out literally. And the last Bowman set we saw until 1989 was 1955. So,
and in 54, they really amped up the difference as far as player selection.
For sure. And the back, the only thing you can say about Topps that was kind of a screw up is there's no Mickey Mantle in 54 or 55, right?
Yeah.
But once Bowman's out of the picture, Mantle comes back to Topps. He has that iconic 56 Topps card. But it was, what a great time. And the Topps and the Bowman sets, go learn, go read. We've given you some of the information. There's so much more, and there's so much more depth to it that we don't have time to do on a podcast. But I encourage you to go learn, because so much cool stuff.
I had a lot of fun researching for this episode, and there's a lot of stuff that I saw that I was like, maybe you thought you knew it, but I guess if you can't remember it, did you really know it? I mean,
right.
I'd probably read it before, but if you've forgotten it, you can always go back and refresh. So there's never a bad time to learn about the history of not only the cards, but the players as well. I think that we find a lot of things that, to me, the players were just so interesting back then. There were just so many crazy, great stories, and it's just a lot of fun. I encourage anybody, even if you don't want to collect the set, go back and learn about it. Maybe you will want to after you. I'm fired up to go buy a 53 Topps Mays right now.
Well, that'll cost you. That's a big boy card for sure.
That's why I don't have one already.
Right. But everybody, we'd love to hear. The feedback has been tremendous. I would love to hear comments about which of the 53 sets you find most appealing. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Call us crazy for what we like. That's all good. We'd love to hear it. But I want to do a giveaway. We haven't done a whole lot of giveaways on our podcast. And so this is a YouTube exclusive. You have to be watching on YouTube to do this. Unfortunately, I don't have a really great way to do this via the podcast, although I'm working on that. So through a Facebook group for the podcast. But right now, YouTube only. So if you're listening to it on a podcast, you can go find us you can go Bench Clear Media on our channel. You can go see all of the Golden Age of Cardboard podcasts. We'd love to have you come on there, and at least you have to like the video. You have to be a subscriber. You have to like the video and leave a comment as to two things you can leave a comment about: either what you think about 53, the year itself, or what you think the next battle royale between the years can be. And between 48 and 1980, and Andy and I will tackle that in a future episode. But what I'm giving away today, Andy, do you know the story behind this set? Have you heard the story behind this?
Yes. And to me, that is what, obviously it's a great looking set, but the story behind it is what really makes it special, in my opinion.
Do you want to tell the story, or you want me to?
Oh, go ahead and tell the story. So
what we're giving away today is this right here, and it's a 53 Bowman. They call it an extension set. And what it is it's, I think, 15 or 16 cards that were done. Let me count them real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15 cards that were done by the guy that was on our last episode, Dave Berg, and his father. His dad came up with this idea of printing kind of some cards that never were, as well as just additional cards of some great players that were included in the 53 Bowman set. And they made them, they are so good, incredibly high quality. There's a lot of people that have this set because Dave has been generous and given these out. But I want to give one to somebody because I have some extras and I want to give this away. You've got players like Monty Irvin and like here's another Stan Musial. Somebody who wasn't in the 53 sets because he had not played yet, or he had played in the 53 season was his rookie season. That's Ernie Banks. Somebody you said that you wish was in the 53 Bowman set. Willie Mays, right? Willie Mays, a very cool Mickey Mantle. And the backs look just like the 53 Bowman set. I mean, this is an exquisitely made set. It is gorgeous.
Do you remember, Mike, like what year it was that they made that set?
It was, I wish I did. There's the Ted Williams. Satchel Paige, who was in the 53 tops, but not in the Bowman. Jackie Robinson, who was in the 53 tops, but not. So, sorry, that's, I don't know what year, honestly, Andy.
But wasn't it like, I was thinking anyway, that it was like the late 70s or early 80s.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I wish I knew the answer to that. That would be, but they've been around a long time.
Yeah, like it's not like they just printed these, like this was like very innovative thinking back then.
Yeah, very creative. They paid all the money to do this and print them, and
yes,
they made a bunch of them, but they're super cool, very nostalgic, and a very cool addition to someone's collection. So we'd love to give it away. Again, you have to be a subscriber. Comment down below, like the video, comment, or dislike the video. As long as you give it a thumb, I don't care either way. Give it a thumb either way. We'd love you to like it.
I would prefer the thumbs up.
Yeah, I would prefer the thumbs up too. But, and then leave a comment, and we will draw for that next week on our episode, which we'll figure that out. We don't want to spoil anything for our next episodes. You just got to come back for more.
Yeah,
so
we've had 53 on the brain lately, so we haven't thought a week out yet.
Yeah, but if you guys have an idea of what you'd like to see as the next battle royale, we'd love to hear it. So Andy, man, thanks for all your hard work to research, and that was fun. That was a lot of fun talking about that.
Yeah, it was. Hopefully, people can take something away from this, and hopefully, they get motivated or inspired to go back and look at these sets, maybe do some more additional research, because we tried to hit on a lot of different things, but there's obviously a ton more out there. So don't take all of this as the gospel.
But that is kind of the whole point of our podcast, right? Is to give people an awareness and maybe open their eyes to vintage in a way that just it's not that people don't know about vintage, but just thinking about it in a different way and maybe gaining an appreciation for it that they didn't have before. That's kind of the goal. And hopefully we've done that today.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, well, man, let's roll out of here. Start the outro. Wait, we don't have an outro. So
we kind of do.
We kind of do. But so any final words, Andy, before I shut us down here?
I guess my final words to steal your line would be keep collecting.
Hey, I can't think of a better way to end the podcast. Everybody have a great one. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you.